This is a special group, these folks here. I appreciate them so much. They've done a great job. More to come. Terrific. Well, how are we doing today? Everybody doing all right? It's Thursday. As Mark has clarified, we're still flying, not circling. That's good. I like that. That works. However, let's be frank now, shall we? Can you bring up the slide, my dear friend? I need to respond in kind to that. I don't have a picture of Renee as a child actor, one of the R gang, Spanky or Alfalfa, but I do have a very important follow-up story to this whole ruse that is 100% true. And if you've been to more than one of my sessions, I'm sure you've heard me tell this story before, but it's only fair. He brought it up, so I need to respond. So many years ago, Renee used to invite me to come and speak at his church. Now, I haven't been there in a while. I don't know what I said the last time to get on the bad list, but I have done quite a few weekends at Twin Lakes Church and always enjoy it. It's a wonderful group. You can imagine with this man as your senior pastor how wonderful the congregation is at Twin Lakes. And normally I am a substitute speaker. The pastor is either on vacation or he has a guest booking somewhere else, or for some reason, most often when I am speaking at someone's church, the senior pastor is not there. This particular occasion, Renee was there, and he went to great length to introduce me as I prepared to get up to give the Sunday or the weekend message. They have Saturday services as well. So in the same vein, Renee not only had still photos, but actual clips from the movie that he showed as a form of introduction for the weekend speaker. And if you know the movie, he picked all the choice parts, Ralphie in his pink bunny costume and sliding down the slide and all the different things. And he made up this elaborate fiction of he had made contact with my mother and got home movies, and that's what we were looking at here. My mother had been gone for many, many years. I didn't know how he made that one happen. But anyway, he claimed that all this was in connection with now Ralphie as an adult. So I give my message, and as often Renee invites me, bring some of your books, and we'll set up a little book table in the lobby of the church, and people can get them, and they can get you to sign their book if they would like. So I went back after the service, and sure enough, there's a book table there, and people are actually buying books and want to get them signed. And I noticed that this one woman has just a pile of books, probably a dozen. And I thought, wow, I need to be nice to her. She's going to feed the family for a couple of weeks. And I'll never forget, she had little notes of who to make it out to. Don't just sign your name. This is to Sally, and this is to Fred, and this is to Uncle Harry. And I'm signing all these, and I'll never forget, she leans down and she whispers in my ear, she says, "Are you still acting?" And I kind of pop up wide-eyed and look at her and thinking this is a joke, right? She's dead serious. She thinks I'm Ralphie all grown up. And I'm like, you know, don't you, that was kind of a skit. I'm not Ralphie. I'm me. That was just a joke. To which she responds in aghast, "Pastor Renee lied to us?" And she's starting to do this slow boil. I can see her face just reddening, going on. I'm like, this woman is angry. And I'm signing like crazy thinking, you can't have them back if I already wrote my name on them. You know, no refunds. So turns out she's like angry enough, she's writing bad emails to the church. Renee, how could you do this? How could you lead us astray? How could you be such a bad role model, an evil man? She's doing this, and it's bad. It's bad. Well, fast forward, I don't know how long, 3-6 months, and Renee invites me back. So I go back. This time, we're in a little bit better position because Renee's not going to be there. Whew. All right, dodged a bullet. Renee's in Connecticut or Keokuk or someplace. Renee's gone, and he has a wonderful assistant, Valerie Webb, and Valerie's in charge. And surprise, surprise, Valerie is up in the balcony where the sound room is, and she's monitoring the slides. Makes sense, right? If it's Renee's church, Twin Lakes, there's going to be 1,000 slides, whether you use them or not. So Val is typing up slides, and Kathy and I arrive, and we come down, and we're sitting down on the front row, and all of a sudden, one of Val's friends comes rushing down the front and comes to us and goes, hey, Val wants me to give you a message. I said, what's that? He says, the lady who thinks you Ralphie is going to be here today, and she's really mad. And he said it with such urgency. I mean, I felt like the only thing he didn't say is, and she's got a gun. So in those days, when you speak at Twin Lakes Church, when you're in the first part of the center, you're right there where the speaker sits over here in Cannon Beach. You're over on this side at the front. Kathy and I are over there. Whoever's leading the first part of the service does the, hey, while you have a second, turn around and greet your neighbor. And I turn around, and there's a lady. Now, I forget what the lady looked like, which is, an interesting psychological issue. I forget, but there's these ladies that are the right age in the row right behind, and none of them are smiling. And I'm convinced, you know what? One of those is the killer. And so comes time for the message, and they've got, not like this where it's just a cliff, but they've got stairs up. And so I come up the stairs, and I start speaking, and I'm genuinely shook. I'm really nervous. And so I'm working this part of the room a lot, as much distance as I can get, and I'm doing this as best I can. And sure enough, I'm talking, and out of the side of my vision, and any glasses wearer will help you understand, you can't see real focused out of the side because you can't see out of the glasses from the front. I'm seeing a blur, and it is literally a human body walking up the stairs. And I believe there's something in that person's hand. It's a gun. And I have this split second of, if I'm ever on a show where they ask, what was the most nervous you've ever been as a public speaker? I think I'll tell them, well, it was the moment before I died, before I was shot in cold blood at Twin Lakes Church. And I turn, and thank goodness, hi, how are you? It was a young man who had come up the stairs, and he had some mental disability. He had a water bottle that he wanted to give me because he thought it sounded like I needed a drink of water. I mean, it was as darling as could possibly be. I thought the water bottle was a gun. I thought he was Killer Lady. And it turned out he was this really, really nice guy. So, just a PS to the story. When all of this is over, we go out to lunch, and Valerie is one of the people at lunch. And I'm like, Val, why did you send that guy down to say she's coming and she's really angry? And she says, what did he say to you? I said, well, he said you had a message from you that the woman that thought I was Ralphie's coming and she's really mad. He said, well, he didn't finish it? Well, what do you mean? And she says, and now all is forgiven. She's just fine. She's excited to hear you. Well, why didn't he say that? That may have been the last time I've been to Twin Lakes Church, now that I think about it. So anyway, that's my version of Renee drumming to death my look-alike to Ralphie in the Christmas Story. So that's a pretty amazing event, and it really did happen. So I got to keep moving along because we had a wonderful men's breakfast this morning. But doing the math, this is right about when the sugar high of all the donuts are going to come off. So if you happen to be sitting next to a gentleman, keep nudging him in the ribs to keep him awake, because the sugar donuts are starting to wear and have an issue with him, okay? We are going to begin this morning, if you will look at the book of 1 Kings one more time as an intro, and then we're going to spend the rest of our time in the book of Proverbs. 1 Kings chapter 4, verses 29 through 32. 1 Kings 4, 29 through 32. God gave Solomon wisdom and very great discernment and breadth of mind like the sand that is on the seashore. That's what we covered on Monday. And Solomon's wisdom surpassed the wisdom of all the sons of the east and all the wisdom of Egypt. He was wiser than all men, than Ethan, Heman, Calco, Darda, sons of Mahah, and his fame was known in all the surrounding nations. I think that's pretty valid because I don't know any of those other men or women. Probably mispronounced their names. But here we go, verse 32. He also spoke, here it is, 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. So when we go to the book of Proverbs, like we did Tuesday and like we will today, we're kind of getting his greatest hits. I mean, believing as we do in the inspired word of God, God himself had 3,000 choices to include in the inspired book of Proverbs, and he gave us the ones that we're going to look at today that you can divide topically, like we looked at sluggards on Tuesday. We looked at diligent people on Tuesday. Today, we're going to look at the power of words, or as it's oftentimes referred, the tongue. And we're going to see all the different descriptors that we have for the way we communicate, the words that we choose. Now, I should have done this on Tuesday, but I didn't. But I've included it now just in case you've never really seen this before. The Proverbs are part of a section of the Bible called the poetical books, all right? Psalms, Proverbs, Song of Solomon, and Ecclesiastes, okay? What we're reading in Proverbs is Hebrew poetry. Hebrew poetry contrasts from English poetry in that it's not all about rhyme. Way, day, pay, say. Hebrew poetry is more about the structure, of which in the book of Proverbs there are 3 kinds of structure, all beginning with the letter C. I think that's where the blanks start. For example, the first style of proverb is called a contrastive proverb. If you're ready to turn over there now, let's start in chapter 1. I'm not going to read all 31 chapters, but chapter 1, look at verse 7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. In some versions, I think the King James, there is between the first line and the second line a contrasting word, usually the word but. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. The first line makes a statement, and then the second line is the contrast of that, okay? Now, stay right there. The second form is called completive proverbs. Completive proverbs. Look at chapter 1, verse 8. Hear, my son, your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching. I think this is an extraordinarily relevant proverb. This is a completive proverb in that in the first line, you're told to listen to your father, and in the second line, you're told to listen to your mother, and the two will be united. They'll be on the same page. I think of all the times my kids would always say, well, if you want ice cream, you better ask Dad because Mom won't give it to you. But if you want, later on in life, if you want the keys to the car, don't ever ask Dad. He'll never give it up. It's like we know how to play Mom and Dad against one another because they're not speaking as a united voice, right? And we also know no matter how stupid we think our kids are, they're really smart in that resolve. They know how to get what they want if Mom and Dad don't agree. Proverbs 1:8, a completive proverb. Now, turn over to chapter 16. Third style is called a comparative proverb. Chapter 16, verse 24. Pleasant words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bone. The first line makes a statement, and the second line amplifies it, okay? Why are pleasant words like a honeycomb? The second line says, because it's sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. Okay? So you can see that all throughout the book of Proverbs. That's what we talk about when we talk about Hebrew poetry. The book of Song of Solomon that we looked at very briefly earlier in the week is a love poem. And the 3 verses that I had you look at are what we would call in a poem or a hymn or a song lyric, the chorus. Do not arouse or awaken love until she pleases. All right? Repeated over and over 3 times because it's the chorus. It's the main thing Solomon wants us to take from that love poem. Okay. Having said all that, now let's spend some time this morning looking at the wonderful world of words. Now, if I run out of time at the end, I won't get to develop this more. So let me say it now before I run out of time. Words are a very common and important word in Scripture. Most importantly, just write down in the margin, John chapter 1, where John describes Jesus himself as the Word. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Greek word logos, all right? Word is extraordinarily significant in Scripture. So, let's start with the ways to describe words. We'll start with the big one. Number 1, words are powerful. Words are powerful. Proverbs 18, verse 21, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Somewhere along the line, you have been impacted by the power of the tongue, both positively and negatively. Somebody has said something to you that changed your life forever, positively or negatively. It was a mentor or a teacher or a coach or a parent who said, you've got real skill in this particular area. I think you should develop it. Or someone else who was being helpful but being very critical. Take my advice. Don't do that anymore. Give that up, all right? I know you think you're a soccer player, but trust me, you're not. I suggest the flute, And the next thing you know, the guy's first chair flute in the Philadelphia Orchestra. It's that power of words. One of my sons is in the advertising business, worked for years in some of the top agencies, and then just a few years ago went out and started his own, gave it the creative name Butterco. And as an advertising guy, those people know the power of words. Matter of fact, I saw this, he passed this on to me. The 10 most powerful words in the English language, and this is from an ad guy who's going to put it into a commercial or a print ad, okay? Not in any order, these are the 10, all right? You, free, because, new, guarantee, discover, instantly, imagine, results, love. Powerful words. put in the proper sentence in the right ad, you'll buy those widgets because the ad guy did it. I would add to that an adage I heard years ago, and it's absolutely the truth. There are no words more beautiful to a person than his or her own name. We love to see or hear our name. Now, I know you're humble, you're Christ-like, but come on, you like to hear your name, especially if it's in a complimentary way or something sort of positive. I've known that for years. When I graduated high school, I was going to do what every Philadelphia kid did. I was going to go to Penn State and major in business and then run IBM. And my senior year of high school, our new youth pastor at our church basically had a revival happen, and we all ended up going to Bible college down in Miami, Florida, where the president of the Bible college was, even to this day, the most effective personal evangelist I have ever met in my life. This guy could win a microphone to Christ. I mean, he was so effective. It was just magnificent. And we just analyzed this guy to death. You're in Bible college and you have this incredible role model. Look at this. And we discovered one thing that just didn't work in the whole picture. And that is, for the life of him, he could not remember people's names, which is not good when you're trying to disciple or mentor or lead to Christ. But he had a fix. Everybody he met, man, woman, boy, girl, he called Bud. When you'd meet this guy, what you know, Bud? Lady or gentleman, what you know, Bud? Oftentimes, more they come, the worse they get. What you know, Bud? And we would sit in our dorm and mock this guy forever because he was so good. There was like nothing we could point a finger at except called everybody Bud. Fast forward 15, 20 years. I'm a successful public speaker and minister, flying all over the world, impacting people. I land in Miami, Florida, at the Miami International Airport. I'm making a connection. And I'm walking down the concourse, and all of a sudden I hear over the loudspeaker, paging Bud Butterworth. Bud Butterworth. Please go to the United ticket agent at gate C6. Bud Butterworth. And it was the oddest thing, because as I was walking down the airport concourse, I was flooded with memories of all the years that I had lived in Miami and how many times I had used that airport. And I was a college kid all over again. And then you hear over the loudspeaker what they're making fun of back in Bud Butterworth. I said, oh my gosh, being the humble guy that I am, someone has recognized me that I went to college with, and they're playing a gag. This is great. And I looked at my watch. I got enough time. I can do this and still make my. So I make my way to the United Travel, and I go, Bud Butterworth. And the United ticket agent goes, oh, man, I am glad you're here. Your grandmother's over there. She's been here for about an hour, and she's been worried sick that you weren't going to connect. And I turn and look. First of all my grandparents have been dead for decades. And I turn around, and there's this woman with just this furrowed brow, and she's just as nervous as can be. And I remember going over, and before I could say anything, I'll never forget. I wish I could do Renee's voices. Think old and, very confused. She goes, Bud, you're not Bud. And that's all I could take. It's like, I was back out of there. I have no idea what happened to the lady. It was so embarrassing. But it was like, oh my gosh, aren't I Mr. Special, The power of words is magnificent, okay? However, the second one puts it all in context. Number 2, words are powerless. All right? Chapter 14 Verse 23, in all labor there is profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty. This is the old, you got the talking part done, all right? You can say all the stuff that you're fixing to do, but it's powerless if you don't actually do it. Now, this is a good point to just say in a very simple kind of style. There are communication experts that write 500-page textbooks on what the communication process looks like. But if I can give it to you in very simple layman's terms that even I can understand, a communication process basically involves two people that the communicators would call the sender and the receiver, okay? And the sender is the person that's going to communicate to the receiver. And what they are going to communicate is in the middle, if you're going to draw this as a diagram, and that's called the signal, all right? So the sender sends the signal to the receiver, okay? So let's say it's a husband and wife. And let's say in this particular situation, the wife is a stay-at-home wife. Maybe she's got kids. The husband is out working at an outside job, and they both have had a horrible day. The guy at work has had incompetence surround him. He's had bad meetings. He's had long phone calls. He's lost deals. He's a mess. Meanwhile, at home, the wife has decided, you know what? I'm going to really show this guy how much I care for him. No more microwave stuff. No more Uber Eats. I'm cooking from scratch. And she spends all day, hours, on a gourmet meal. So they come together at night and they sit down at the table and he takes his first bite of food. Well, he's in another world. He's still upset that he lost the big deal. And she's hanging on every chew. And finally she says, what do you think of it? What do you think of it? Huh? And he looks at her in a daze and he goes, it's nice. And she goes, nice? Nice? You know, I've been in the kitchen all day and the best you can come up with is nice. You know, and the guy's like, what did I say? What did I say? Well, you know, what's the old movie? Cool Hand Luke. What we have here is a failure to communicate, okay? We've got a woman who's hoping that the signal is going to be more powerful than nice, and we've got a guy who's thinking, based on the kind of day I had, you're lucky I got anything positive out. I could have said, this is horrible, this stinks, this could gag a maggot, you know, but she said, nice is a good thing. So see, there's one more thing you have to add to the communication diagram. You got the sender, you got the signal, you got the receiver, but then you draw a big circle around the sender and the signal, and then another circle around the receiver and the signal. And what those big circles represent is what they call the field of experience, or basically what we're talking about, where they come from, where their head's at, their field of experience, what happens that takes place before the how do you like my dinner take place. And so if he knew how much she had put into it, and if she knew how horrible his day was, it would have been a good day to just hold that meal, order a pizza, and go to bed early, you know, because it was just not good. But you get what I'm saying? It's all about that frame of reference. It's all about the context that makes communication effective or ineffective. Okay, we press on. Number 3. Words should be pure truth. Words should be pure truth. Chapter 16, verse 13, righteous lips are the delight of kings, and he who speaks right is loved. I mean, in my notes I have here, be known as a truth teller. I always remember a whole message I heard by a pastor who talked about the danger of half-truths. Half-truths. And the bottom line was, be careful, because the half you may believe may be the wrong half. Be a truth teller. Okay. We turn over one chapter to chapter 17. We have the 4th observation. Number 4, words should be prudent. Words should be prudent. Interesting term. Even a fool, this is 17:28. Even a fool, when he keeps silent, is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is counted prudent. And this is the whole concept we've all heard about, and it really works. So many times we come off better if we just don't say anything. And if you are the quiet one, you're viewed as the mature one, the intelligent one. Everybody else is arguing, and here we are looking good because we're quiet. There is a great dictionary of biblical words by a gentleman whose last name is Vine. It's called Vine's Expository Dictionary. This is how he defines that last word. When he closes his lips, he's counted as prudent. Prudent is, quote, quickness of apprehension, the penetrating consideration which precedes action. It's knowing in advance how this is going to come out and responding properly, as in not really necessarily saying anything. I was with a dear friend of mine who's a therapist, and that's a friend. It wasn't a full-on session, but a friend. And we had just become grandparents, and it was like, oh, we're so excited. So do you have any advice, any counsel on how to be good grandparents? And she said, oh, yeah, I got something right away. This has worked wonders with our grandkids and with our kids, relating with our grandkids. What you need to do is always practice the acronym WAIT, W-A-I-T, WAIT. Like, don't jump in and try to solve all the questions. Don't jump in and say, well, I don't know why you're doing that, because when you were, WAIT. And WAIT stands for, why am I talking? That's pretty profound, isn't it? Now, after all these years of grandparenting, I think that therapist is onto something. Why am I talking? Kids aren't going to buy it anyway, and the grandkids are going to, they're going to have to figure it out on their own. If they genuinely ask, and I can put it in a proper way, but basically, I'm not their parent. I'm their grandparent. So I got to remember that and just make my words prudent, and that means make my words few, okay? I told you the other day I love presidential history, and we had the JFK quote about Jefferson. There's a great one in this line, too. It's with the quietest president we ever had, Calvin Coolidge. At a White House dinner, a woman approached President Calvin Coolidge and told him she had made a bet with her neighbors that she could get him to utter more than 2 words. Coolidge smiled and responded, "You lose." Words should be prudent. Words should be few. Okay, number 5. Words should be patient. Patient. Chapter 17, verse 27, just before it. He who restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. Okay? Words should be patient, or another way to say that is calm. It's the whole idea of that second line. Are you a hothead or a cool spirit? There's a personality type who has this malady that I would call a sentence finisher. You ever been around someone like that? Now, I got to do a PS here. In marriage, oftentimes it's adorable and it's cute, and if you can finish what your wife is saying, or she can finish what that's really cute. But when it comes out of the marital context, it gets a little bothersome, And even as a couple, if you're not quite on the same page, I can remember saying to Kathy, "Oh man, I remember when I was in Rome." You're going to say Rome, right? No, Barcelona. Yeah, no. New England in the fall. No. Can I finish? Yeah. When I was in Costco. Now, usually we are right on, but you can see how you're in trouble when I'm in getting the free samples at Costco and she thinks we're in Rome at some romantic spot for dinner. Don't be a sentence finisher, okay? Let that just kind of sit there. Matter of fact, I have 2 verses under that one, you'll see. Chapter 15, verse 1. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. I love these contrasts. Are you gentle or are you harsh? Do you turn away or do you stir it up? So many contexts. That's why that communication diagram is really important to keep in mind all the time, that we need to keep it uppermost in our thinking. Number 6, words should be perfectly appropriate. Perfectly appropriate. 15:23, I love this one. A man has joy in an apt answer, and how delightful is a timely word. Timely words, apt words. We were talking at the men's breakfast this morning about how in the Butterworth family, there are certain things that kind of rule supreme. And it's not just really important things like moral integrity and Christ-likeness and, flag-waving American. We came up with the conclusion that most important in the Butterworth family is humor, that you got to be making people laugh if you're going to be a bona fide member of the Butterworth family. Now, the poor kids that marry into this, they're still working on their bit. They're in trouble, and they're not getting the respect. But humor is very important. And from the time they were little, I taught my 5 kids, there's 2 things you got to remember about humor, and that's timing and appropriateness. Timing and appropriateness. You ask my kids today, and they're old, what do you remember about your dad talking to you about humor? Timing and appropriateness, okay? There's the right time for it, and there's whether it's appropriate or not. And from the time I was little, I got exactly the award that I wanted when I graduated high school. I was the class clown, okay? And that was something I had studied for and worked for. And my best friend was a year younger, and I mentored him. And sure enough, he was class clown the year he graduated. We're still in touch, and you don't want to see us when we go out to dinner together. It's a mess. But humor was always an important part. Timing and appropriateness, timing and appropriateness. So when back in the 80s, when I was working for the Swindells at Insight for Living, I wrote my first book because I decided there's a gap in American literature. I'm going to be the male version of Irma Bombeck. Anybody old enough to remember Irma Bombeck? She was a delight, okay? So I wrote my first book, and it had the provocative title, Peanut Butter Families Stick Together. And the subtitle was, Family Life Can Be Smooth or Crunchy. So this book came out, and I was convinced it was headed for success, for the New York Times bestseller, and because I was taking an adage that I heard from my mentor, from Chuck Swindoll. To this day, if you ask me to describe Chuck in one phrase, it's the phrase he uses all the time: take God seriously, but don't take yourself so seriously. All right? And this, I said, the Christian bookstores are filled with books on how to take God seriously. There's not much on not taking yourself so seriously. So that's what this book was all about. So I didn't know anything about writing. I didn't know anything about publishing. I got a publisher, and it came out, and people started writing me letters. And I discovered if someone's going to write you, they either really like it or they really don't, And so I started getting mail about the books. And I remember one day, I lived close enough to Insight for Living that I could go home for lunch. I went home for lunch. I came back, and there was a single envelope on my desk at Insight for Living. And I opened it up, and it said, Dear Mr. Butterworth, I just finished your book. It is not funny. I have 10 kids, and I'm stressed out. Please refund my money. And I was so new and tender and soft-skinned. I was crushed. I remember I read it once, immediately folded it, put it back in the envelope, put it to the side. And all afternoon, I was just shook by that. It was like, man, she's really upset. And I was no help at all. I blew it. So I went home that night, and on the way home, I said, okay, I got to shake this off, just be a good husband, good dad. I come in, and my wife immediately says, what's wrong? I said, what do you mean, what's wrong? I can tell. Something happened. What happened? I said, no. I'll tell you after dinner. Let's not get the kids involved. So we had dinner, and the kids go off in the next room, and my wife says, okay, so tell me, what's going on? I said, okay, I'm a little embarrassed to tell you, but the truth is, I got this letter from a woman today. She's got 10 kids. She read the book. She hated it. She wants her money back. I just feel terrible. And I no sooner say it than I hear in the next room, and I'm like, what's going on in there? I said, well, I'm crushed. I mean, this is a bad day for. And I opened the door. Get out here! What's going on? What are you guys doing? I'm talking to your mom, and I don't know what you're doing. I want to hear what you're doing. My 10-year-old son wrote that letter. And he comes dancing into the kitchen. Guess we need to take ourselves less seriously, huh, Dad? And there it was, timing and appropriateness. I don't know how appropriate it was at that point, but everything healed up and the stitches went away, and it was terrible. Okay, words should be perfectly appropriate, okay? 25:11 is a very well-known and very poetic proverb. Like apples of gold in settings of silver is a word spoken in the right circumstances. Golden apples in silver frames, the picture of perfect words. Number 7, words can create problems. Chapter 20, verse 19. And here we have 3 different problems we need to watch out for because of our words. He who goes about as a slanderer reveals secrets, therefore do not associate with a gossip. So the first word problem is becoming a gossip. And I simply have 2 words in the margin under that. Prayer requests. Under the guise of prayer requests, we try to get as much gossip as we can. Well, you won't believe what Charlie told me today. It's for prayer, of course, but you should hear about this idiot. He is really and there we go. Second one, let another praise you and not your own mouth, a stranger and not your own lips. That would be bragging. Gossiping, bragging. And then chapter 29, verse 5, flattering. A man who flatters his neighbor is spreading a net for his steps, okay? His steps, not the neighbor, but his steps. You get caught in your own trap. Watch out for those 3 things, gossiping, bragging, and flattering. Okay, number 8, words should be pondered. Pondered. 15:28, the heart of the righteous ponders how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things. If you study the Proverbs in Hebrew, the Hebrew word that's ponder, you can circle that word in your Bible, means a variety of different things, but here's one of the meanings that is translated pondering. Pondering means to emit a low-pitched sound. What? To emit a low-pitched sound. That means when somebody talks to you, instead of immediately blowing them away with an answer that may be right or may be wrong, you go, Now, I never knew that before. I studied this before. Is biblical, okay? So develop the ability to emit a low-pitched sound. Words should be pondered. Number 9, words should be protected. He who guards his mouth and his tongue guards his soul from trouble. Guarding your mouth guards your soul. I think what is most important in that passage is the connection between what we say and what's going on inside of us, okay? That there's a connection between your soul and your words. And if you really let that grab you, that'll change the way you speak. That'll change your conversations. That'll change all the words that come out of your mouth. They need to be protected. And number 10, words declare our primary pattern. Words declare our primary pattern. Watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it flow the springs of life. Put away from you a deceitful mouth, and put devious lips far from you. Once again, the connection between your heart and your words. We often are told, there's a famous John Wooden quote that you need to be concerned with your character more than your reputation, because your character is what you are, your reputation is merely what other people think you are, which is valid. But there's also the whole idea of The character that is inside of us comes out through what we do. And so the reputation and character may be more connected than Coach Wooden really gave credit for. It's all about what's going on inside. You know it. I don't need to illustrate it. What we say is a result of who we are down deep inside. There's one more, chapter 10, verses 11 and 13. The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. Okay? It's there. We need to be careful. Now, to wrap this up, I included the words of Jesus in Matthew chapter 12, verse 34. You brood of vipers, how can you, being evil, speak what is good? For the mouth speaks out of that which fills the heart. Okay? A couple more blanks to fill in. In conclusion, number one, choose words thoughtfully. Okay? Choose words thoughtfully. Think about what you will say. Choose words thoughtfully. Second, choose words carefully. Take your time, choose the right words. And number three, choose words that demonstrate godly character. Demonstrate godly character. People will know you by your words. Having grown up in the church as a church kid, I've always been fascinated by the music of the church. And there are the great hymns from the Martin Luther days. But I've been fascinated more recently with the Christian music of the last 150 years. And especially 150 years ago, the Billy Graham of the day was D.L. Moody. And D.L. Moody, just like Billy Graham had his Cliff Barrows, D.L. Moody had his guy, Ira Sankey. And Ira Sankey traveled around with Moody, and he was the song leader, and he would do the choir, and it was really a majestic thing. And Sankey had a sub. If he couldn't make it, he called on another guy to be his song leader. And this guy's name was Philip Bliss, P.P. Bliss. And he lived a long time ago. Matter of fact, 150 years ago was his songwriting heyday. And he wrote all kinds of stuff. He wrote Almost Persuaded and Hallelujah, What a Savior. And interestingly enough, we all know It Is Well With My Soul, Spafford's hymn about his children and the ship. Bliss wrote the music to that. Spafford wrote the words, but P.P. Bliss wrote the music. And he wrote this song that we used to sing in church all the time called Sing Them Over Again to Me, Wonderful Words of Life. And the little chorus, I think, is so profound. Words of life and beauty teach me faith and duty. Beautiful words, wonderful words of life. When I got up here an hour ago, I thanked the worship team for being so good. Guess what I did an hour and 5 minutes ago? I said, hey, do you guys know Wonderful Words of Life by P.P. Bliss? And they said, I don't know it, but if you talk a little longer, we can come up and do it. So we're all going to sing Wonderful Words of Life together, right? Oh, good, they know it. All right. Talk about a killer speaker. Hey, I know we're on in 2 minutes, but can you sing this song you've never sung before? So listen to them, and then maybe we can join in as well, okay? Thank you for your attention today. God bless you.